What if the company that created the future was too afraid to live in it? For over a century, Kodak was more than a brand. It was how we remembered our lives. Vacations, birthdays, weddings, every roll of film, every snapshot tucked into a photo album or taped to the fridge. It all carried that familiar yellow logo. They didn't just sell cameras, they sold memories. They gave us the Kodak moment, a phrase so powerful it became part of our language. But in 2012, that moment ended. The same company that pioneered digital photography filed for bankruptcy. A giant undone not by competition, but by its own hesitation. How does a company go from inventing the future to being destroyed by it? Today we take a look back at the rise and fall of Kodak, the company that changed how we captured life and then forgot how to adapt to it. Let's rewind to 1888. George Eastman had one mission: make photography simple. At the time, taking a photo meant glass plates, chemicals, and a whole lot of patience. It was expensive, messy, and mostly reserved for professionals or the wealthy. But Eastman's invention, a small box camera that anyone could use, changed everything. With one line, Kodak changed the world. You press the button, we do the rest. It was revolutionary. Customers would snap pictures, send the whole camera back to Kodak, and receive printed photos with the camera reloaded. It was streamlined, elegant, and accessible. Suddenly, photography wasn't a profession. It was for everyone. By the early 1900s, Kodak had become a household name. Their cameras were in homes and schools on vacations. Photography was no longer a luxury. It was part of life. And Kodak was at the center of it all. But the real genius? The film. Kodak's business wasn't just about cameras. It was about consumables. Every roll of film, every photo print, every special moment captured meant another sale. It was the razor and blade model before it had a name, and it worked. By the 1970s, Kodak owned 85% of the US camera market and 90% of the film market. They were printing money, literally and figuratively. They didn't just dominate an industry, they were the industry. And with that dominance came something else: comfort, confidence, maybe even arrogance. Then came 1975. Inside a Kodak lab, a 24-year-old engineer named Steve Sasson made something unusual. It was boxy, clunky, and could only take black and white images. But it did something no camera had ever done before. It didn't use film. It was the world's first digital camera. He showed it to executives. Their reaction? That's interesting, but don't tell anyone. Kodak had just invented the future and shelved it. Why? Because they knew what it meant. A digital camera didn't require film, didn't need processing, didn't need Kodak's biggest cash cow. They weren't ready to give up the empire they'd built, even if it meant ignoring the future that was staring them in the face. Imagine a company so successful, so dominant, that it was scared of its own innovation. As the 1990s rolled in, the photography world began to shift. Digital cameras from companies like Sony, Canon, and Nikon began hitting the market. Early models were expensive and low-res, but they were improving fast. Kodak watched from the sidelines. Yes, they experimented, released a few digital models, bought a photo-sharing platform called Ophoto in 2001. But their focus was still on getting people to print their digital photos, trying to funnel the future back into the past. They couldn't let go of the model that had made them rich: the film, the prints, the process. While competitors leaned into digital, Kodak kept doubling down on film. They were trying to make the future work on yesterday's business model, and the cracks started to show. By the early 2000s, digital photography wasn't the future anymore. It was the present. Kodak tried to pivot fast. They released more digital cameras. They rebranded. They invested in inkjet printers and photo kiosks. For a moment, it seemed like they might catch up. And ironically, by 2005, Kodak was selling more digital cameras in the US than anyone else. But there was a problem. They were losing money on everyone. Their digital division was growing, but it wasn't profitable. The company had spent decades mastering film. Consumer electronics? Not so much. Margins were razor thin, manufacturing was outsourced, and Kodak, once a vertically integrated giant, was now scrambling to compete in a cutthroat market it didn't fully understand. And then came the knockout punch, the smartphone. When the iPhone launched in 2007, photography changed forever. Now the best camera was the one in your pocket. Connected, shareable, instant. Photo albums became Instagram feeds. Film became pixels. The delay between snapping a photo and sharing it? Gone. Kodak didn't just miss that wave. They never saw it coming. They had the patents. They had the history, but they didn't have the vision anymore. By the end of the 2000s, Kodak was in freefall. They cut jobs, closed factories, sold off assets. But it wasn't enough. In January 2012, Kodak filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A company that once controlled how the world captured its most precious moments had run out of time. The business wasn't just declining, it was evaporating. And the saddest part? It didn't have to be this way. Could Kodak have survived? Many think so. They had everything. The patents, the talent, the market share. They weren't disrupted by someone else's invention. They were disrupted by their own. The digital camera was born in a Kodak lab. It died in a Kodak boardroom because they chose to protect yesterday instead of betting on tomorrow. It's a lesson that still echoes in business schools today. If you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. Kodak had the vision, but not the courage. They saw the future, but chose the past. It wasn't just a technological failure, it was a cultural one. They failed to redefine their identity when the world was changing around them. They clung to what worked until it didn't. After bankruptcy, Kodak reinvented itself as a smaller, business-to-business company. Today it works in imaging, commercial printing, and advanced materials. The name still exists. Some cameras and printers still carry the Kodak logo. But the magic? The empire? That's gone. The factories are closed. The billboards are gone. And that once ubiquitous yellow film box? Just a relic of the past. Fast forward to 2025. Kodak is no longer the giant it once was. But it isn't dead. They've reinvented themselves, pushing innovations in printing, sustainability, and even nostalgia. In partnership with Rito, Kodak released the Charmera, a tiny digital camera inspired by the 1987 Kodak Fling disposable camera. It has a 1.6 megapixel sensor, retro filters, and blind box packaging in 7 colors. At just $29, it's more about fun and nostalgia than cutting-edge photography. A reminder that Kodak still knows how to tug at emotion, even in the digital age. Kodak doubled down on industrial printing. In 2025, they showcased the Prosper 7000 Turbo Press, the fastest inkjet press of its kind, capable of 410 meters per minute. Paired with Kodak Ectacolor inks, it blended speed, sustainability, and offset-like quality. They also advanced process-free plates like Sonora X-Tray, eliminating chemical steps and reducing waste, critical in a sustainability-driven market. Kodak reports sharp reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and water use. Their focus is clear: build technologies that align with environmental responsibility. Yet even in 2025, Kodak's future is uncertain. The company warned investors it might struggle to meet upcoming debt obligations, raising doubts about survival as a going concern. Decades after bankruptcy, Kodak is still fighting to stay alive. Their innovations are real: presses, plates, nostalgic products, but profitability remains fragile. So what did we truly lose when Kodak fell? Not just a company. We lost the anticipation of dropping off a roll of film, the thrill of opening an envelope of prints, the ritual of flipping through albums and stumbling on a forgotten moment. Photography became instant, frictionless, infinite. But we lost the waiting, the mystery, the moment. Kodak was part of our lives, and that made its fall feel personal, because it wasn't just about business, it was about memory. And watching it disappear felt like watching part of our own past fade with it. Kodak didn't fail because it couldn't see the future. It failed because it refused to believe in it. The company that once gave us memories became trapped in its own. Today, what's left of Kodak is a shadow, but a shadow still moving, still trying, still inventing. Whether it survives another decade remains uncertain, but one truth endures. The Kodak moment will live forever, not just in photos, but in the story of how a company can change the world, and then lose it by refusing to change itself. Kodak's story is more than the tale of a fallen company. It is a warning to every business that clings too tightly to the past. Technology doesn't wait for tradition, and sometimes the biggest danger isn't the competition, it's your own refusal to change. So the question remains, if Kodak, the company that invented digital photography, couldn't save itself, what chance does any brand have when it ignores the future knocking at its door? And what about you? Do you still remember your first camera, your first roll of film, your first memory captured by Kodak? Tell us in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.